In the 1930s, Dr. Norman Walker invented what's considered to be the first juicing machine. The effect was twofold. First, Americans eagerly embraced the idea of turning their fruits and vegetables into nutrient-rich beverages. And second, it would get the juices flowing for new business opportunities. The juicing business is bursting in popularity. From ardent practitioners of all things healthy to those aiming for wellness and balance, on down to people simply wanting the next big trend in taste. A glass full of dark green liquid no longer elicits rumbles of disgust. Instead, it's prized, likely the final product of an exotic amalgam of vegetables and spices. With punchy titles like Life Tonic, Kale Blazer, and Defense Up, this niche market has grown into an industry powerhouse, with U.S. sales in 2013 somewhere in the ballpark of $23 billion, which is why beverage giants like Coca-Cola and Pepsi want a taste of the action, acquiring juice lines of their own. Well, some would say the juicing industry is oversaturated, causing many companies to get squeezed out of the market, which is what makes the story of Arden's garden so sweet. The ingredients are simple: a passion for health, a love of family, and a spirit of enterprise, as you'll see in today's Executive Profiles.
Tell me about growing up with Arden Zinn and learning about juices.
So growing up with my mom was quite an experience. She was extremely cutting edge and avant-garde, and so she was making juices and smoothies and all sorts of weird combinations for my brother and I from the time we were very, very little.
This was here in Atlanta. Here's this woman who's gotten hooked up in the health scene long before the health scene was a craze. What was the foundation for that for her?
So my mom grew up and she was a dancer, and when she married my dad, they moved to Atlanta, so my father was a professor at Tech. But she was super into health and wellness, and she was a voracious reader, and she was into exercise. So she was introducing us to all sorts of things way before they became popular.
At what point did this concept of having a lot of juices at home with the kids start becoming a business for her?
So it took a big break. She was in the exercise business for years, but there was a juicer that she always wanted, and it was called a Norwalk, and she heard about it in 1963, but it was $1,500 and she couldn't afford it. Fast forward 1993, she's still pining away for this juicer. So she does the all-American thing. It's now $2,200. She gets out her credit card, she buys a juicer. And that's how it all started.
You go to Georgia Tech,
yep,
where your dad was a professor. It was all about going to med school or doing something else with your life?
I was going into business, and then I went into business, and I was in a marketing company, and it was a good job, but I didn't feel fulfilled.
Right.
I wanted to have an impact on my community, so I said, I want to go back and go to med school. So I went back and took the sciences and applied to med schools. At the same time, Return to Eden opened in Atlanta, and they heard about my mom, and they said, hey, come to the back of our store and make juices, and we'll give you the produce, you sell the juice, and we'll split the sales.
Great. So at that point, did a light go off in your head saying, wait, there could be a real business here?
No.
No?
No.
So when did that happen?
So, the business struggled the first year. Juicing was not known, and Return to Eden was brand new, and sort of as a last-ditch effort, my brother and I said to our mom, hey, go into Buckhead and try to sell these juices because we need to make more money. And so we thought go to like lawyers' offices or stock brokerage houses, but my mom thinks a little differently than the rest of us. And she went to hair salons.
Oh.
And literally that decision turned our business around in 3 weeks.
What started off in a kitchen with your mom making smoothies, how do you take a concept like that and scale it up to the point where you're actually putting it in a bottle, sealing it, and selling it to a customer?
I did not know anything about the manufacturing process, but I had my brother with me at that point, so he was unbelievable in setting up the processes. He took one look at my mother's home juicer and he was like, there's no business here. And so he was the first investor in the company, and he bought, it was the same process, which is cold pressing, but he bought a single press. And then as we grew, we went from a single press to a 6 press. Now we're at a 24 press.
Talk to me about the business of this and how you were able to grow it and what has been the success so far, and where do you want to take it?
It's grown very steadily since 1995. We are pretty much only in Atlanta right now. We have a few outlets. We have online sales and such, but we just built a new plant. It'll be opening in January, and it should expand our capabilities enormously. So we'll be moving outside of Atlanta and mostly into the East Coast region.
Talk to me about what's going on in society right now that's helping the business and how you've adjusted to that.
So the business was growing. It's like we were steadily growing all the time. And then about 3 years ago, when the huge craze hit with healthy eating and juicing, we were perfectly positioned to expand on that. So in 19 years, we opened 7 stores. And in the 20th year, we opened 7 more. So we will be opening 2 more stores at the end of this year, and we'll just keep growing. It's been amazing.
Well, how do you work on your foundations, and how do you determine what is going to sell and what's not going to sell?
We have a really great combination, and that is because we have our own retail stores. We have direct contact with our customer. So I'm an avid juicer myself, and I'm very into health, so I try new combinations all the time. If I like the combination and I feel it has a good effect on me and my family, then I'll introduce it to our retail stores. Well, we can make a batch of juice fairly easily. We don't have to do a whole lot of R&D and do labels and submit it to Publix and Whole Foods. We just send it to our stores. And then people like you will tell me right away, this is a hit or this is not a hit. And if it's a hit, then we'll introduce it into our wholesale line as well.
Was there any point during this entire process where you're like, I don't think this is going to fly?
Well, in 2003, we had just bought our plant. Publix called us on a Friday, and the guy said to me, we've been selling to them for 5 years, and he said, are you sitting down? And not a good way to start. And I said yes, and he said, we are going to stop taking product from you beginning tomorrow. And what had happened is Odwalla had come in and gotten in through the warehouse. We were a DSD vendor, meaning direct store delivery.
Right.
And they had decided to replace us with Odwalla, and we had just bought the plant. And Publix was a significant part of our business at that time. So honestly, at that point, I wasn't sure we were going to make it.
And how did you work through that?
So I took the weekend and I thought about what's different about us and Odwalla. And one of the things I knew was that we had incredible customer loyalty. I wrote an email and I said, if you want to be able, I sent it to about 35 people, if you want to be able to buy Arden's Garden at Publix, or you just want to support small businesses, please contact Publix because they will listen. And people did it, and they listened. And it became incredible because within 3 weeks, they called us back, and not only did they keep us in their stores, but they brought us in through the warehouse, which expanded our reach by about 200 stores.
Your mom, what does she think about? What is her whole view of this, what's happened to the business?
She is amazed that this thing that she started just in her little kitchen has grown to the place that it is. And the best thing for her, my mom is not, she's not motivated by money at all. She's completely motivated by wellness and the impact on her community, so she's thrilled.
Arden's Garden just opened its 15th store in Georgia. This one is in Lilburn. Next month, the company plans to open a 16th store on Sylvan Road, as well as its newly renovated 80,000 square foot plant. Expansion won't end there, as Arden's announces plans to open 3 more stores before the end of the year.